Welcome back to all of our fans and subscribers and those new to this channel. There's been a major, or should I say, unprecedented development pertaining to Venezuela's dispute with Guyana over the expansive oil and mineral-rich region called Essequibo. Stick around for the details. This week, Venezuela created a law presumably to aid in carrying out the country's plan to seize Essequibo from Guyana. The law is called the Organic Law for the Defense of Guyana Essequibo. President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela made the following announcement on Wednesday. Quote, "The decision of December 3 has now become the law of the Republic, to form part of the legal structure of the internal political and institutional movement of our country," end quote. Maduro made the announcement via a tweet on the Elon Musk-owned Twitter, now called X platform. Maduro added, quote, "And with the power given to me by the Constitution, the decision made by the Venezuelans in the consultative referendum will be fulfilled in all its parts, and with this law, we will continue the defense of Venezuela on international stages," end quote. Details emerging from the Associated Press and other reputable news agencies confirmed reports that Venezuela signed and approved the law. Before we move to Guyana's response, I invite you to subscribe to this channel for updates, like our channel, comment, and share it with your friends across all of your social media platforms. Thank you so very much. Now let's get back to this breaking development. Guyana's president, Irfaan Ali, immediately condemned the decision by Maduro's government. In an official statement published by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ali describes the decision as, quote, "an egregious violation of the most fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the United Nations Charter," end quote. Ali also notes Venezuela's approval of the new law goes against the spirit of the Argyle Declaration. For those of you who may not know, President Ali and President Maduro met a few months ago in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In summary, the heads of state agreed to keep the peace and wait for the World Court to make its final ruling on the merits of the decision by the 1899 Paris Tribunal to award Essequibo to Britain. As you may know, England ruled Guyana during that period. The 1899 Tribunal Award is internationally accepted as a full, final, and legal settlement of the dispute over Essequibo. In essence, it is believed to have, quote, "definitively settled the land boundaries between the two countries," end quote, says President Ali. Note that the two presidents met after Venezuela held its referendum and threatened to continue its plans to annex Essequibo. Many people and international stakeholders saw this as a positive sign. Essequibo residents felt massively relieved, naturally, and many of them returned to their homes after fleeing to neighboring cities in fear Venezuela was on the brink of going to war with Guyana for the oil-rich region. The new law signed and approved to defend and potentially attempt to conquer Essequibo has reignited fears of a possible war between these two neighboring South American nations. Venezuela is yet to publish information outlining how it intends to exercise jurisdiction over Essequibo. According to press statements, Maduro says the National Assembly will exercise legislative powers over Essequibo until the dispute is resolved. In other words, the National Assembly may continue making secondary laws to support the country's planned conquest of Essequibo. Within a few months, Venezuela expanded its troops and ramped up its military presence along the border near the disputed region. This is despite the two countries agreeing under the Argyle Declaration signed in December not to use force or threats of force against each other. Onlookers and stakeholders are of the view that a recent decision by Guyana could have soured the peace deal between the two nations. Following the Argyle Agreement, Guyana agreed to host the British warship HMS Trent offshore. This must have pissed off the already volatile Maduro, causing him to send troops near the Venezuela-Guyana border, where they conducted military exercises. In fact, Maduro at a press conference shortly after said that by inviting the British warship, Guyana violated the spirit of the Argyle Peace Agreement forged between the two nations. There is also no word of when or if President Maduro will be meeting with Guyana's president, as they had agreed during their meeting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in December last. Stewing in his anger, Maduro must have decided to move ahead with annexation plans, essentially saying to hell with the Argyle Agreement to maintain the peace and continue to dialogue with Guyana. Venezuela has targeted Essequibo for over a century, claiming that it was stolen from them when a special tribunal in Paris allocated the territory to Britain. At that time, Britain controlled what was then British Guyana. Despite frantic efforts, Venezuela was never able to convince the international courts that Essequibo was rightfully theirs. British Guyana became Guyana as it is now today after Britain ended its colonial rulership over the territory. Guyana officially gained its independence in 1966. That did not stop Venezuela from claiming ownership over Essequibo. This area on the Guyana map represents 2/3 of the country, which stretches into offshore waters also controlled by Guyana. Venezuela, though, is also disputing the maritime boundary of the offshore areas. Let's fast forward to around 2015, when Venezuela realized the Essequibo region was home to massive oil basins. Oil explorations in the region triggered far more aggressive claims by Venezuela over the territory. Let's be clear. Venezuela does not own or control or have sovereign rights over Essequibo, not under any law, local or international. Any dispute over the region was settled ages ago by the Paris Tribunal. In fact, on December 1, 2023, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, reaffirmed in a major ruling that Guyana has sovereign control over Essequibo, not Venezuela. However, Venezuela continues to maintain the ICJ does not have a say over what the country does. This is despite the country's signing of the 1966 Geneva Agreement, in which it recognizes and accepts the ICJ as having legal power to settle the dispute with Guyana. The ICJ's final decision on this complicated matter could take years or even decades. Venezuela nevertheless held a referendum on December 3rd, 2023, 2 days after the ICJ ruling, barring Venezuela from specifically and clearly barring Venezuela from taking any action that could aggravate the dispute with Guyana over Essequibo. It's that same referendum that has now been signed into law by Venezuela. As you already suspect, the decision by this country to make a law to follow through with annexing Essequibo has far-reaching implications and potential consequences for both countries. In short, the referendum, which has now been legalized, paves the way for the Spanish-speaking country to try and seize the Guyanese territory it claims to own. Guyana continues to stand its ground with Venezuela and has always pushed back on its claims to Essequibo, despite having a small military force, which, by the way, is no match for the Venezuelan army. Guyana is confident about getting military assistance from major players, including the United States. Last year, the U.S. confirmed its support publicly for Guyana regarding the border dispute. According to reports, the country is also collaborating with France and India for military support in preparation for annexation attempts by the Bolivarian Republic. That is, Guyana continues to collaborate with other countries in attempt to boost its military base. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for listening. See you next time for another episode of The Final Takeaway.